When you think of One Piece, what is the first scene that comes to mind? Is it Shanks leaving his straw hat with Luffy, giving him the motivation to reach the top of the pirate world? Is it Robin finding her reason and will to live? Or maybe it's Zoro taking on all the damage Luffy took in battle plus his own, and telling Sanji that nothing happened? Today we are going to take a look at some of the most impactful moments in One Piece and what made them so special. Make sure you guys stick around to the end for a little surprise. Zoro, the swordsman of the Straw Hat Pirates, the future greatest swordsman of all time, is known for having some of the most iconic scenes in not just One Piece history, but anime history. There is a large number of One Piece fans out there who will say that the moment that made them fall in love with the series was during the Baratie. And even though this was a Sanji-focused arc, the introduction to his character, Zoro still managed to steal the show. I am so sorry, Sanji fans. His intense battle with the legendary Mihawk would set the stage for the vast world of One Piece and show fans that the scale of this adventure is much greater and more ambitious than you could even imagine. This masterfully crafted scene with Zoro inevitably losing to Mihawk really showed us the qualities within these characters that drive them towards achieving their dreams. Willpower, ambition, respect, fearlessness, companionship. These are some of the many traits and themes of this story, all of them flushed out in a single chapter with masterfully crafted dialogue and a new standard for One Piece that would only be extended upon. Fast forward 13 arcs and over 400 chapters later, and we get a first-hand demonstration of the monstrous resolve Zoro had been carrying with him since that moment. When Zoro and Luffy first met, he considered joining Luffy as a means to an end, but in this moment, Luffy was not just a person he was tagging along with to simply aid in his own endeavors. Luffy's dream had now become a part of Zoro's dream, and only by Luffy reaching the top, only by sticking to their promise, could Zoro truly achieve greatness. Somewhere along the journey, Zoro stopped purely fighting for himself and was now fighting for a greater purpose, for his friends. So when Kuma tells Zoro that the only way for Luffy to live is for him to endure all of the damage that Luffy has taken, plus his own, he gladly accepts the challenge. And because of his immense willpower, because of his drive to live, and the promise that he made to Luffy, he takes on the challenge and still comes out on top. Something that Oda does incredibly well is foreshadowing, and I'm not referencing the foreshadowing Oda is often acclaimed for, like planting small hints for reveals hundreds or even 1,000 chapters earlier. What I'm referencing is how he creates emotional, complex underlying webs of personality for his characters, and uses Luffy along with the rest of the world to slowly flush them out. He actually makes use of this a lot more often now, and more comfortably as well, with characters such as Kaido, Momonosuke, Hiyori, and even Rebecca. But his very first demonstration of this type of character development came from the East Blue Saga. The first time we're introduced to Nami, she expresses how much she despises pirates. Luffy, of course, points out the cracks in her logic simply by demonstrating the kindness through his own actions. What do you think was going through Nami's head when she saw Luffy sit down next to this poor dog who just lost his home and, give him some food for comfort? This moment broke through a decade of torture, a decade of pain and suffering. One simple action by a random pirate made Nami think that maybe this pirate, the person that I'm inclined to hate, isn't so bad after all. A thought she probably assumed would never even cross her mind. As she continues to travel with them, she begins to forget her troubles. She begins to feel like she finally has a family again. And even though we don't get told this directly, we still get little hints every arc that preceded Arlong Park. Just like with Zoro, she was beginning to see Luffy as not a means to an end, but rather a friend or a comrade. So when she reads Arlong's wanted poster for the first time and ends up leaving the crew, it really left all of us wondering why. When her tragic past is finally revealed and we find out how deep Nami's wounds really are, Luffy is shown not listening to a single word of it. He doesn't know and he doesn't care to know. At Nami's darkest moment, Luffy comes up to her and she fully realizes that the past doesn't matter anymore. Her troubles from yesterday no longer need to be the troubles of her tomorrow, because now she had friends that would ensure that no one would ever hurt her again. This scene of Nami on the ground finally giving in and asking for help is why Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp walking toward Arlong Park became one of the most impactful scenes in One Piece history. One thing that is evident when looking at all of these different moments that really define the series is the insane amount of emotional depth behind each of these characters. Their different backstories riddled with tragedy, their motivations, their personal fallacies and preconceived notions due to the horrific conditioning they've been subjected to, these are all things that can be applied to Nico Robin. One of the most intelligent and knowledgeable characters in the series is labeled as a demon, all because of what she knows. From the world government's perspective, a perspective that eventually becomes her own, her very existence is a threat to the current oppressive establishment. All Nico Robin has ever wanted is to know the true history of the world, something that in reality should be an easily accessible thing. However, the world government in One Piece is known for making inconvenient parts of history disappear. One of those inconvenient parts being the Void Century. Scattered across the One Piece world are the ancient stones known as poneglyphs, and it is through the deciphering of these poneglyphs that the true history can be uncovered. As a child, Robin learned how to transcribe the ancient text, leaving all of the other scholars on Ohara in awe at the raw talent she possessed as a young archaeologist. Unfortunately, this talent would also prove to be a curse. Not long after learning the ancient language, the world government enacted a buster call on her hometown for getting too close to the truth, killing everybody she knew and loved, including her own mother. She managed to escape with the help of Admiral Aokiji, but from there on out, she was constantly targeted and labeled a demon child, and she was constantly reminded every time she came across someone new that she should have never been born. People who would let her into their homes did so only for the money they would get for turning her in. Over time, she would begin to lose her trust in others and rely on illegal underground organizations to get by in secrecy. That was until she met Luffy and the Straw Hats, who, like Nami, gave Robin a reason to go on. Robin didn't want to trouble all of her new friends with this burden, so she ended up leaving them. But obviously, Luffy would never be okay with that. He would never accept that. So when Robin is about to be executed and she sees her friends come to her aid, willing to challenge the rulers of the world to save her, she finally realizes that her existence wasn't a mistake after all. That it was okay to want to live and live a normal, happy life, discovering the things she's passionate about with the people she cares about. I would be absolutely insane not to mention the moment that kicked off this entire series. For anime-only watchers, you may be a little bit confused, but the first chapter of One Piece was actually Luffy's first flashback. During this backstory, we see Luffy go from an ambitious and naive child to one who learns what it means to truly be a pirate. Even though Luffy learned what it truly means to be a pirate, I would argue that there was an even more valuable lesson that he learned during this arc. Shanks demonstrates to Luffy that above all else, the one thing that you must always value and protect is your friends. So when Luffy is taken hostage by the bandits, Shanks comes to save the day. He sacrifices his entire arm to save Luffy from being eaten by the Sea King, and Luffy sees firsthand what it truly means to have people by your side. Luffy has been carrying that very important lesson around with him for the entire series, and it is because Shanks helped Luffy become the person he is that so many people flock to Luffy's side, because they know that when trouble comes to them, Luffy will always be there to protect them. Before I get to the final moment, I would like to turn things over to our special guest of today's video, Parvision.
Sunlight shines the brightest in the dark, and so your sunlight is the lifeline when you're at your lowest point. You asked me what moment in One Piece impacted me the most, and truthfully, there were so many. So many times One Piece has touched my heart or gave me a perspective that genuinely carried me through some of the most difficult times in my life. But the moment I'll share today is when Luffy realizes what he has left after Marineford in episode 505 and in chapter 590. By this point in the story, Luffy had lost his crew to the events in Sabaody, but due to the global events, he could not return to them or even have the time to try. He was faced with a predicament where he had to overcome not just a mountain, but literally the greatest world powers to save his last living brother, Ace. Luffy sacrificed so much of himself and pushed himself to the brink of death countless times to make it to Ace, and for him to lose him at the last moment was so brutal. This put Luffy in such a severe depression that he lost sight of everything. He lost sight of himself, his future, his present, and his past. The unbreakable man or rubber boy that we came to love that overcame everything in his path was now shattered. His resulting words was that he was too weak. It came down to him blaming himself for not overcoming the ridiculous odds. It was truly so painful to watch. And I think a lot of us can relate to a depression like this. I think a lot of us can relate to a trauma like this, where after countless losses to this extent, it would push you to doubt yourself, to beat yourself up, to blame yourself for the unfairness of the world. As men, we often bottle up these feelings, but we have Luffy's father figure give us the lines that you grow up and become a man by experiencing victory and death, by doing difficult things and shedding tears. It's alright to cry, just overcome it. And another father figure in the series that cemented his place in my heart, trying his best to break Luffy out of the darkness, that was Jinbei. I'm gonna paraphrase some of the things he said to make it more related to this context, and obviously this was said in the pirating world and not exactly how he would say it to a loved one. But Jinbei goes on to say, "Are you blind to everything now? Where's your confidence that you can overcome anything? What happened to that strength that you never doubted? You've now faced countless obstacles that have crushed you and what you believe in. You lost your loved ones who inspired you. A giant wall stands between your eyes and the world. You can't see the way forward right now. Regret and guilt are consuming you. It may be painful now, Luffy, but fight it. Don't dwell on what you've lost. What's gone is gone forever. Try to remember what you still have." And it was in this moment that Luffy remembered his crew, his friends, his family. And that's what really resonated with me, especially growing up. And you see this in our world too. Behind every successful person is a team. Behind most of your role models is a family or group of friends who help support them. And it doesn't matter how strong you can be as an individual, the ways of the world will find its way to overcome you. Every time I was in the kind of darkness that left me hopeless, it was my wife, family, and friends that I consider family that were what lasted. The strongest man is still weak to illness, and the most responsible person can still be crushed by the weight that they carry. No person is invincible, and the way to overcome that is to surround yourself with amazing people. And not just that, be the amazing person that others would want to surround themselves with. I could continue, but I guess the last thing I'd want to say is we often isolate ourselves in these low points in our lives, but being alone in the dark is a lot scarier than having some form of sunlight to give you solace. And so with that, thank you Sunlight Alliance for giving me the opportunity to share this moment that's so important to me.
To a certain amount of people watching right now, I'm sure putting Gear 5 up there with moments such as Nothing Happened or I Want to Live might come across as a bit of a controversial take. But I'm here to argue that Gear 5 was one of the most important moments in this entire series and one of the most impressive feats of any mangaka ever. And here are my reasons. When it comes to a lot of other shonen anime, you often see mangaka write themselves into a bit of a trap when it comes to the abilities of their characters. Some of the biggest core themes in One Piece is freedom, liberation, and the dream of living a fulfilling and meaningful life. Gear 5 is not just a transformation that gives Luffy a boost in power and a change in appearance, it's the ultimate personification of freedom. It's the freedom for all those that Luffy fights for, the freedom to fight in whichever way he chooses, and the freedom for Oda to explore the wackiest ways to draw Luffy without the limitations of reality. It allows him to flesh out all of Luffy's real-life symbolisms while having it actually make sense. I mean, Luffy literally looks like Zeus holding lightning in this chapter, and that's not even to mention the monkey god moves, him transforming into different animals, the eye popping, and using his enemies as a jump rope, and so much more. In addition to that, this feeling of liberation that comes with Luffy's new form, I don't think extends just to the characters within One Piece. What other transformation in any anime can make nearly everyone, fictional or in real life, laugh, dance, tap their feet, smile, all while rooting for him to win the battle? What would normally be a serious face-off between mortal enemies in any other medium turns an extremely dark and bleak situation into something that you can't help but laugh and smile at. Just like Luffy makes his crewmates' troubles fade away, he also makes our troubles, if just for a moment, fade away as well. This transformation perfectly embodies everything that Luffy is, and subsequently gives him the thing that he strives for the most, true freedom for himself and all of those he cares about. Gear 5 turns his characteristic into a form of defense for his friends, in a way that will never make them worry about being oppressed ever again. I want to know what moment in One Piece was the most impactful for you. You can let me know in the comments or even directly in my Discord server. And also shout out to last week's art challenge winners, Varys and Ariel, who did an amazing job in the Discord server. For those who want another in-depth One Piece video, definitely check this video out right here.